Let's make thick crust or Sicilian style pizza dough. Well, it's very similar to a focaccia dough, and you will see this type of dough used in southern Italian pizza like sfincione from Sicily. And also, a dough like this can be used for a Roman style pizza called pizza al taglio or pizza by the slice. So today I'm going to be making this dough with my stand mixer, my KitchenAid, but if you're at home and you don't have a stand mixer, this can be done by hand. So this is a high hydration dough, or a dough which has a lot of liquid or moisture incorporated. So if you want to understand how to knead a high hydration dough, just check out the video located in your dashboard. So now we're going to start adding our ingredients. So I'm going to start off with my water, and I know a lot of recipes will call for warm water. We're just using room temperature, so around 20 to 22 degrees Celsius, and just pop that straight into your bowl. Along with that, we have some olive oil, just a small amount, just to add flavor and also moisture. We have some yeast. Now you can use fresh yeast or dry yeast, and you'll see the different measurements in your recipe. Now we're using some bread flour, or also known as strong flour. Now this flour has a higher concentration of protein, and if you check the back of your pack, it will have a serving suggestion of 100 grams, and what you need to look for is where it says 11 to 12 grams of protein per 100 grams. So that's 11 to 12% protein. So we're going to add that now to our water, yeast and olive oil, and some semolina flour. So we're going to add that too, and that's going to give us a great texture and nice bite to our pizza crust. Now with your hook attachment, we're going to pop this onto our mixer, and we're going to mix this on speed 1 for a couple of minutes, or until just everything starts to come together. And you'll notice that I haven't put my salt in yet. We're going to set that aside. So on the mixer, just until everything comes together on a low speed. Now that everything has just come together, we're going to let all of our flour hydrate with that moisture, with our water, and set this aside for 15 minutes. Now I've got a lid for my bowl here that I'm going to pop over the top, but you can also just put over a plate or a tea towel and set that aside for 15 minutes to hydrate. Our dough has been resting for 15 minutes, just to allow all of that moisture to be hydrated into our flour. Now we're going to go ahead and add our last ingredient, which is our salt. And pop this back onto our mixer. And we're going to mix this on the second speed until we get nice gluten development. And this can take anywhere from 4 to 8 minutes. So I can see that my dough is starting to pull away from the sides. So I know that we're getting some good gluten development. But we also want to perform a window test just to ensure that we have that gluten developed, so we can capture lots of that gas as our yeast is outgassing, and we get a beautiful, fluffy, thick crust dough. So just spritz a little bit of water onto your hands, and you're just going to take your dough, and you want to be able to make a window with the dough and be able to see some light through it. And we have a separate video that you can go and check out, so you can get a nice close-up look of that. But I'm happy with my gluten development on this dough, so I'm just going to use my dough scraper, scrape it off the hook, and you will notice that it's a very wet dough. Don't be tempted to add more flour, because we want a nice wet dough that's going to encapsulate all of that beautiful air, so we get a lovely fluffy texture. Now I've got a container here. Now we're just going to put some olive oil down the bottom, and rub that all the way around, and that's going to prevent our dough from sticking. And see how wet that dough is. Beautiful. Now we're going to perform a couple of stretch and folds. So you want to just get underneath the dough. If you've still got the oil on the hands, great. If not, just spritz a little bit more water. That's going to prevent the dough from sticking. And we're going to pull from one corner, stretch, and fold over. Okay, turn around, we do the same thing. Stretch and fold. And we're going to continue on until we get every corner, and this is going to continue to develop more gluten and start incorporating more of those beautiful air bubbles. And our last one. Okay, now we're going to pop our lid on and we're going to perform stretch and folds about every 45 minutes to an hour until we have a dough which has tripled or even quadrupled in size, so about 2 to 3 hours. So I have my thick crust pizza dough prepared, and it's beautiful and bubbly and about quadrupled in size. So I am using this dough today to make sfincione, which is a Sicilian pizza that you would often see served around New Year's or Christmas period. So the first thing we're going to do is, I've got myself a large tray here. So for my folks who are in the USA, this is a half sheet pan. Or for everybody else around the world, just the largest pan that will fit into your oven. So we're going to generously cover the base with olive oil. And make sure you get all up the sides as well. And we're going to get our pizza dough in. And we're going to gently stretch it into the corners. And you'll notice that it's very much like a focaccia dough. So I'm going to leave this now for about 15 minutes just to relax a little bit, and then we're going to come back and do the final stretch on our dough. So it's been about 15 minutes and our sfincione pizza dough, or our thick crust pizza dough, just had a little bit of time to rest. So we're going to continue just gently pushing or stretching into the corners, like so. So we've got a nice even dough. Okay, now I'm going to set this aside for another about 15 minutes or so before I put this into the oven. And it is going to grow quite a lot. It is a very thick pizza. 1 times the recipe to create some pizza al taglio, and I'm going to make 2 pizzas. So first thing that we want to do is, I'm going to take this dough and pop it out onto my bench, but I'm just going to pop a little bit of olive oil onto my bench just so it's not going to stick. Okay, and I have 2 large trays here. So for each of my pans, we're going to generously put some olive oil down. And I want to cut my dough into 2 equal pieces. So just using my dough scraper. So we're scaling it into 2, and you can use your dough scraper to maneuver your dough as well. So now we can either use wet hands, or I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil on my hands so the dough won't stick. We're going to start stretching our dough out, because I want to try and keep some of those nice air bubbles. So just stretch it and kind of feel the tension in the dough. And I've stretched this one a little bit. We're going to let that rest slightly, and I'm going to move on to my next one. Okay, so once you've stretched out your dough until it's maybe like ½ an inch thick, don't worry if it's retracting back. We're going to set these aside for about 15 minutes to rest, and then we're going to come back and stretch them again. So it's been about 15 minutes, and our pizza al taglios have had a little bit of time to rest, so we're going to stretch these out again. Now, once you're happy with the stretching of your pizza doughs, we can start putting our toppings. Okay, so we're going to set those aside for another 15 minutes.